Well, hello there. Here's a video about 2 cool moments from what might be my favorite Intronaut song. I'm talking, of course, about killing birds with stones. I'm going to get to this deceptively strange intro and first riff in a second, but first let's grab some low-hanging analytical fruit in the breakdown riff. This breakdown riff is a relatively simple example of an isorhythm, which is a fancy music theory word for when there is a pitch pattern and a rhythmic pattern happening at the same time, but they're not the same length as each other. I like to teach this with a visual metaphor with patterns of colors and numbers. Here, the numbers go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but at the same time, the colors go red, blue, green. Because the numbers aren't multiples of each other, the 2 patterns move relative to each other as they keep going. So at first, the number 1 is red, then the next time it comes around, it's green, then it's blue, then it's red again. This Intronaut breakdown, wouldn't you know it, happens to be exactly like this, except that instead of numbers, we have rhythms, and instead of colors, we have pitches. Isorhythm is a technique that actually goes back to the Middle Ages when it was facilitated by a bunch of innovations in how music was notated. And the other major place that it pops up in a typical history of Western music is in 20th century modernist music, with the really famous example being in Olivier Messiaen's Quatuor pour la fin du temps. And then some nerdy metal bands have used them a little in the last 20 years. Here's how it works in this Intronaut song. We have this rhythmic pattern which lasts for 2 measures of 12/8 and is made up of 5 higher notes with various chug patterns between them. At first, all of these higher notes are just C sharps an octave above the lower chugs. And then we also have a super simple pitch pattern, which just goes C sharp, C natural, D natural. When the second guitar enters, it cycles through this 3-pitch pattern on each of the upper notes of that rhythmic pattern. But because there are 3 pitches in the pitch pattern and 5 upper notes in the rhythmic pattern, they move relative to each other. It's the same thing that happened with that colors and numbers pattern before. It's almost as if I planned it like that. In the recording, the first guitar keeps playing the rhythmic pattern without the pitch pattern, so we also get a cool pitch phasing effect happening at the same time as this isorhythm in the right panned guitar. Pretty nice and very fun from a theory standpoint, because with analysis we can kind of figure out a simple set of rules that governs how this works, and it's a set of rules that isn't all that obvious just from listening. I have an ongoing project gathering examples of isorhythms in metal. If you know some more examples other than all the ones in the Meshuggah riffs, which I'm aware of, throw them in the comments. Now it's time to talk about that very bizarre intro and first riff. The song starts with just these guitar attacks, and a few scattered drum accents. The guitars are doing this thing where we have a pattern of 2 equally spaced attacks, equally spaced in time, and the first one is high, the second one is the low open string. For the first 30 seconds or so, there's almost nothing to give us a metric context for these attacks, though. Please allow me to explain what that means. Because the drums don't give us any overarching metric context for this first little bit, it would be perfectly reasonable to hear these guitar attacks as measures of 4/4. Or 6/8. There's even a short moment before the drums really kick in where they take this 6/8 interpretation. Or heck, it could even be 10/8, which would be the same thing as quintuplets filling out these 2 guitar attacks. We could also make things slightly weirder and say that it's in 3/4 and that the second guitar attack is on an offbeat. That's a lot of options. Surely it wouldn't be anything weirder than this, would it? As it turns out, it is. It seems like in this first part, they're feeling it as that last option, the 3/4, because in all the live videos I can find of this song, and every time I've seen them play it, they have that pulse going on the hi-hat through the start, that 3/4 pulse. But when the rest of the band comes in the recording, it's with a 9/8 feel, which is equivalent to the 3/4 thing, but with each of those beats divided into 3. It's super trippy because the guitar attacks change from being equally spaced to being this 5+4 thing. So here's that groove slow where you can hear a little better that the guitar attacks are now a different length from each other. The actual recording tempo, though, it's much harder to hear that the first guitar attack is longer than the second one. As a side note, this thing where it's 9/8 grouped as 5+4, but fast enough that it kind of just feels like a wonky 2-beat thing, is one of my favorite little rhythmic tricks. This switch from the even spacing of the guitar chords in the intro to the slightly uneven spacing of the same chords when the whole band comes in always makes me feel like time itself is bending in a really cool and weird way. And finally, here's something that I would not have realized if I hadn't decided I was finally going to start playing drums in these videos. Peep those sick counter rhythms that are going on in the various instruments of the drum set once the full band is in. One way of kind of organizing them is by thinking of them as a repeating pattern that lasts for 24 eighth notes. So the kick drum, just the kick drum, sounds like this. These 24 eighth notes are interpreted as two measures of 12/8, so it feels kind of like 4/4 with a snare hit on beat 3, which is the typical kind of metal halftime backbeat thing. And if that wasn't enough, the same 24 eighth note span is interpreted as 5 plus 4 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 on the crash cymbal, which adds another layer that doesn't quite line up with either the guitars or the backbeat implied by the snare. So there's a ton going on in this riff. There's plenty of metal that has two different metric layers going on. A small amount with 3, and I'm sure there are some, but I can't think of any other examples that have 4 pretty independent streams like this. But maybe the wildest thing is that all of these layers actually combine to make a section that grooves so darn hard. Maybe it's just because I've listened to it a million times, but it feels very natural and infectious to me. I'm still blown away by the amount of really original, odd things that happen in this song and the way that they somehow combine to slap so hard. I haven't even scratched the surface about their weird brand of quasi-jazz harmony or the links between all these riffs or the strange 5/8 postlude, and all that will have to wait for another video because I am already overreaching in the scope of this video. But in the meantime, go listen to this song and all of Intronaut's music, which I always find to be both a constant source of inspiration and just straight up ear candy. And with that, I am off on a brief vacation. Well, a vacation from posting and spending too much time on the internet. I'm actually going to be doing a lot of work. I'm going to be doing some video leveling up and trying to front load the transcribing, analyzing, script writing, shedding, and filming work for this channel so that I can keep posting regularly once the academic year starts. Thank you all for your support, and I will catch you on the flip side. See ya.